Welcome back to Access Anime. I'm Henshin Ikeda, and today I'll be doing a walkthrough review of Magi Episode 7. Now, if you remember from last episode, it was all about Morgana, and that's why I love the episode so much. But sorry, I digress. Jumping back into what the last episode was really all about, apparently Morgana joins a caravan that's heading to Bolbad. Now, again, she's heading to Bolbad. Why? Well, first of all, to see Aladdin, to thank him, as well as to thank Alibaba. Now, she's also heading to Bolbad to go to the Dark Continent, since it's one of the only open ports to go to the Dark Continent. Now, while she's going to Bolbad, she stops into a little town with her caravan, and apparently it's been ransacked by thieves. Now, we also find out apparently those same thieves have kind of made a little headquarters in the middle of the road to Bolbad. Now, the caravan decides to turn around, but Morgana decides that ain't gonna happen, so she jumps right in. Now, we were introduced to a new character who happens to be a slave trader. His name is Mr. Fitma, and Fitma, not my favorite character, but he was defeated in last episode, so that was, thank God that actually happened. Now, while Morgana was actually fighting Fitma, she gets enslaved by him. She becomes a slave yet again, but moving past that, she ends up actually fighting Fitma, as well as his hyenas and his white fang tigers. Now, again, that was an interesting little battle. I loved watching it. Now, after she frees all the slaves, Aladdin appears. Apparently he was also captured, and now he's free. And what happens every time we see Aladdin when he's in that kind of situation? Yugo. So Yugo ends up saving the day, and again, that was generally the end of last episode. We do see Morgana and Aladdin. They're now free, and they're heading to Bolbad. But again, that was last episode, and this is a new episode, so let's dive right in. And again, I'll keep my final thoughts and my rating at the end of the clip, so stay tuned. But let's dive right in. Now, we open up this episode actually with three guys, which we don't really know their names, but you can tell they are thieves, and they run into a guy which apparently is in the middle of nowhere, like in the desert, but in a light oasis kind of. So they're kind of in an oasis, and they smell this guy has like alcohol on his breath, and he's passed out. But he has tons of jewels, looks like he's got a lot of stuff worth money, as well as certain tools. Now, I'll get to what those tools are later on, but again, it snaps. There's no one around to see what they're going to do next. They rob him, and I thought that was hilarious, a great way to open up the episode. But again, that was the opening episode. We see three guys robbing a rich guy in the middle of nowhere. But moving past that, we actually see Morgana and Aladdin. They are heading to Bolbad. And we found a little more information about why Morgana wants to go to Bolbad. If you remember correctly, it's so she can go to the Dark Continent, and the only port available to go to the Dark Continent is in Bolbad. Now again, she's already said thank you to Aladdin, so now she's actually going to try to find Alibaba to say thank you as well. But again, that's where we were at actually there. Moving past that, we actually get to see, that's right, the guy that was robbed. He appears right in front of him, and he's buck naked. Obviously that was censored out, but he's completely naked, and he's been robbed, and it's kind of hard to believe, at least in Morgana's eyes, that this guy's a genuine article of, something's got to be up. But Aladdin ends up seeing something in this guy, like Alibaba. He's got a good feeling about him, so he helps him, gives him his extra change of clothes, and this guy looks hilarious with little kid clothes on. Now we find out he gives his name as Sin. Now that's not his full name, but I'll get to that later as well. But again, now his name we know of is Sin, and we are taken to a little side scene other than him describing how he was robbed. Apparently Morgana smells the sea. Now Sin directs Morgana to like a little hilltop. Now on this hilltop she's able to see Bolbad, a huge, beautiful city. I love seeing this little cutscene. Now apparently Morgana takes Aladdin with her when she goes up to the mountaintop, and I thought this would be a great opportunity for Sin to ransack the group and run, but remember, he's not really that kind of guy. So I was kind of nice to see that he wasn't going to rob them or anything. But we are taken to a different scene, and they're actually in Bolbad, and they're looking all around, they're in a market district, and Sin actually makes an interesting recommendation to go to his hotel, or at least a hotel within the city that he's familiar with, and he'll cover all the costs and everything that's associated with it, just so Morgana and Aladdin have a place to stay. This is how he rewards kindness. Now again, he was ransacked, so he has no money, so I don't know how he was going to pay for this. But before I get off topic, we are introduced to a little more information about the royal family of Bolbad. Now they're called the Saljua. I hope I pronounced that name right. It starts with an S. And apparently they've been governing this nation for generations. So I thought a little tidbit of information I thought I'd add. But again, we're taken to a different scene. We're actually in the hotel. We see Sin walking in like he owns the joint, and the guards obviously stop him, and they don't recognize who he is. And I thought it was an hilarious scene. Now Morgana, she kind of knew this was going to happen because she didn't trust Sin to begin with, but Aladdin was kind of scratching his head on, okay, what's happening? He said he was going to get us rooms, everything, it's going to be free. No, but two guys appear out of nowhere and identify who Sin is, and they let him in, they reclothe him, and they give Morgana and Aladdin rooms. So they're very grateful. Now, this is the information I wanted to know about. Who is Sin? This is just a little information, not a lot. Now, apparently Sin is short for Sinbad, and he is king of Sindra. So I thought that was interesting. Now, one of his subordinates ends up yelling at him because apparently, well, if you remember correctly, Sinbad was robbed at the beginning of the episode. All of his jewels and his tools are gone. And this, this subordinate's yelling at Sinbad saying, "You even lost your tools?" And, this really isn't the best leader I've ever seen. I mean, Sinbad kind of empty-headed, but sorry, I digress. Moving on, we actually are taken to Morgana and Ali Baba's room. Now, apparently a servant knocks at the door, walks in, and now you see Aladdin actually trying to talk to the servant saying, "What's the fastest way to get to a port so my friend can get to the Dark Continent?" And we're introduced to more information. Now, apparently something called the fog troop is preventing people from, I guess, doing certain trade routes and whatnot and transporting, I guess, out of that little port. And a little more information about fog troop. I'll get into a little more depth of it because I was a little scratching my head when I heard that word as well. Now, apparently, they're a group of thieves who have been appearing, with fog. I don't know exactly what she meant by that, but again, we do a little brief story. Apparently, 2 years ago, a group of thieves, they robbed the treasury and they've equipped strange magic. And once they equipped strange magic, their numbers grew within their guild or this thieves group. Like, they got more support, more attention. Now, they only attack mansions of nobles. So they only attack mansions that belong to nobles, and they also attack national trading vessels. So that's how they make their profit. Now, but again, they're not like Robin Hood, not to be confused with good guys. They basically redistribute all their goods and money among people just to buy the confidence of the people so they can keep doing what they're doing, stealing from people. Now, we are taken to a different scene. We find out that Sinbad's actually talking to two noblemen, which we don't really know the names of yet, but he's trying to open up, well, should I say, reopen up trade routes. So I thought that was kind of interesting. And he goes about talking about the new leader of the troops, Fog, if that makes sense. And he identifies who the new leader is. Apparently, Miracle Man Ali Baba. Really? Is this the same Ali Baba from the past episodes? I guess we'll find out. Now again, apparently he's taken over the Fog Troop. So this Miracle Man Ali Baba has taken over the Fog Troops. Now, because the Fog Troop has appeared now, all of a sudden, they're taking over, well, not really taking over the trade routes, but it's making it impossible for the trade routes to survive. So obviously they're closed now. And Sinbad, he wants to reopen them. He's very strong about that. Now we see a serious side of this new character, Sinbad. In general, he vows to take out the Fog Troop, but without military help. Now we are introduced to two more characters, the two noblemen that he was actually talking to. Now I hope I get their names right, and they are part of the royal family, may I add. Their names are Abnemed and Sabmed. I hope I pronounced it right. And again, they really don't see it possible to reopen the trade routes. They think it's impossible. But now they're taken to like a side scene where we see these guys talking in private, and well, they're saying even if Sinbad is able to get rid of the Fog Troop, well, that's better for them. But you see a little document with the Ku Empire logo on it. So they're in league with the Ku Empire. I thought that was a little interesting. I'm like, so even if Sinbad does manage to get rid of the Fog Troop, they're still going to do something else probably. Now, we're taken to a different scene. We're introduced to two more characters, which were Sinbad's subordinates. Jafar, which was the one yelling at Sinbad about losing his tools, and Masaru. Now, Masaru, he's actually a Fenalius. And if you remember what a Fenalius is, Morgana. The hair was a dead giveaway. They're from the Dark Continent. So that's interesting. Now, we are introduced to a different scene where we see Sinbad talking to Jafar, and apparently Morgana and Aladdin talking to Misrur, kind of doing a little catch-up since he's from the Dark Continent. And then out of nowhere you see Aladdin pull out Yugo, and it kind of freaks everyone out. I thought it was hilarious. And you see Sinbad, he's actually openly saying, like to Aladdin, "You're also a Magi." And you're like, what? You know what Aladdin is? And then we find out a lot more information about Sinbad in general. Now, again, Aladdin's very clueless to all this information that Sinbad's telling him, because he says, well, Sinbad first says he conquered 7 dungeons, and you know that amazed Aladdin in general, but he still doesn't know what that means. And then he asks, well, I should say, Sinbad also tells Aladdin that he was master of 7 dungeons, and he's the High King of 7 seas because, you know, he did conquer 7 dungeons, which obviously means he's going to have 7 dungeon. But again, Aladdin's like, huh? And I thought, again, that was hilarious. And then you see Sinbad telling Aladdin all this information about a Magi. Basically what Baba was telling Aladdin in the past episodes. But again, Aladdin was the one that asks Sinbad, do you know what a Magi is? And again, he's just re-quoting what Baba already told him in general. Now we are taken to a different scene, and we see Sinbad. He's asking Aladdin, and well, not really Morgana, just Aladdin. So Sinbad's asking Aladdin for his help to take out or capture the thieves that are part of this fog troop. Now, instead of Aladdin addressing Sinbad directly, he addresses Morgana and says, well, what do you think? I thought that was kind of interesting. And obviously Morgana is like, she says yes. Well, the reason why she said yes, one, she wants to see Ali Baba again to give thank you to him, and at the same time, she wants to go to the Dark Continent. And in order to go to the Dark Continent, she has to clear all this fog out and get rid of the Dark Troop, well, the Fog Troop in general. So obviously she's going to say yes. Now, obviously Aladdin's going to say yes now as well because he concurs with Morgana. But I thought this was funny. Sinbad, you know, goes about like talking to Morgana like she's an elegant woman and says, well, women should actually stay at the hotel, you know, you shouldn't get involved with this, and he pushes her away to the hotel. And then you see Morgana dig her feet into the ground and say, no, I'm coming along. I thought that was, again, hilarious. Now we're taken to a different scene. Now we're in, looks like a map room where we see Sinbad and Aladdin and Morgana and Sinbad's 2 subordinates, Jafar and Masaru. They're sitting down, they're going over a plan. Now, they have a map out, and they're trying to identify a possible next hit that the Fog Troop is going to try to ransack, the next mansion. And he comes to a great conclusion, and he ends up telling Aladdin all about it. But he also ends up saying the people kind of support the Fog Troop, as well as a few government officials. Then you see Morgana, she basically says, well, is this right? And Sinbad replies very strongly, yes, capturing these thieves is the right thing to do. Now we are taken to a different scene where it's now night, and they're in an alley that's filled with fog, and we're taken to Morgana and again Aladdin. And Aladdin's not really feeling comfortable with taking out these thieves. It just doesn't feel right. But at the same time, he wants to see Ali Baba and obviously help Morgana go to the Dark Continent. So he's going to do it regardless. Now we are taken to a different scene. We see Sinbad and Masaru, and they are actually sent to the first location, which they believe is going to be ransacked by the troops Fog, or I should say the Fog Troop, sorry, I get that confused sometimes. And now I thought this was interesting. They're guarding a noble mansion, but this noble that's inside of the mansion is treating Sinbad like crap in general, like he's not even a High King. Now I believe the High King is a self-proclaimed title that Sinbad gave himself, because he's not getting any recognition as a High King. But sorry, I digress. Moving on. Again, we do see Sinbad and Masaru. They're guarding this noble mansion, and out of nowhere you see a girl appear out of nowhere through the fog and attack Sinbad with a dagger. Now she has a kid on her that's very sickly and thin, and she's basically complaining, I can't even feed my own child. Then more people appear out of nowhere. Now this was a very interesting scene, so I'm going to be very descriptive. Now we see the nobleman throw out one of his pieces of chicken at the woman, like kind of not as a charity but as a joke. And just as she's about to reach for the chicken or the piece of food, Sinbad stops her, grabs her hand, and he says, and I quote, he tells all the people, and not just this girl, nobles, like the noble's wealth comes from your taxes. So if you don't feel if you don't feel they deserve like your money, the money you're paying taxes with, then take it back. And then, but also, don't take their lives. So that was kind of interesting. I kind of butchered that when I said that, because I said it kind of differently. But who is Sinbad? Why is he saying that? I thought he was there to protect the nobles, not incite like a riot. But again, the people, they agree with what Sinbad had to say, and they move on, they leave. So I thought that was kind of interesting. Now we are taken to a different scene. Now we see Aladdin. He kind of has like a tingly feeling like Sinbad needs help, so he's heading to him. Now again, Sinbad, I said Sinbad, I apologize. Aladdin and Morgana are actually heading to where Sinbad actually is because they feel he needs help. But this red mist appears out of nowhere, and Morgana sees it and tells Aladdin, don't breathe it in, and she picks him up and they jump all the way up on the rooftop. Now we see all these guards laughing and passing out, so I thought that was kind of interesting. Now on the rooftop, I should point this out, Jafar, which is one of Sinbad's subordinates, is actually there. Now we don't know why he's there, and this is kind of shady in my opinion. And that was, again, another interesting point. But again, they're on the rooftop, and we can see all the guards passing out, and we see the thieves. They're making their move. The fog troop, they're making their move. And we're introduced to a couple characters. Zinab is another character we're introduced to, and she's using the Sword of Phantasm, the Scarlet Fog, which again is the red fog we were introduced to, or I should say the red mist. We're introduced to another character, Hassan, who is using a sword of corroding golden fog, and it's basically like a toxic gas that's coming out of this sword that's in the shape of fog, or in the form of fog, and it's eating away the wall that he's cutting at. So now we know how they get in and out of buildings. And, you know, Jafar, he's not going to take this. He drops down and he starts battling taking out all these guys. But, you know, it was kind of pointless because this purple fog kind of stops him in his tracks. Now we are taken to a different scene. We're introduced to another character. His name is Qasim, and he's using the Sword of Shackling Ebon Fog. I hope I pronounced that right. Now he says he's a leader with the main forces. Now it was kind of a scratch on the head because I thought Ali Baba was the miracle man of this new thieves, of this group. I thought he was the new leader because he said at the beginning that miracle man Ali Baba was the new leader, so I'm just kind of confused. But again, we see Morgana jump down and she tries to take everyone out, but you know that doesn't work. And then we see Aladdin get off his high horse and use Hugo. He pulls Hugo out, and now it's on like Donkey Kong. But out of nowhere, we see Ali Baba appear. Yeah, and that's where the episode actually ends. So final thoughts right now. Is Ali Baba going to take out Aladdin? What's his connection with this fog troop? Like, what's his angle? And Sinbad, remember at the beginning of the episode, all of his tools were taken away, so he doesn't have his 7 Dajin. At least to my knowledge, he doesn't. So is he going to get his Dajins back? We don't know. Now, I'm also interested to know, Jafar, you're very shady. Who are you? Can we trust you? Now, as for the 2 noblemen we were introduced to, Abamin and, I hope I pronounced his name right, Sabmid, why were you looking at a document that said Ku Empire? Are you going to backstab Sinbad by chance? We don't know. But again, that ends it for my final thoughts. As for my rating, I'm going to give this a 4 out of 5. I should give this a 3.5 out of 5 because it wasn't what I thought it would be, but we were introduced to a lot of new characters, which I was kind of happy to see. And we got a little more background of what's going to happen with Sinbad, as in we're at Baldbad. He is a high king of the 7 seas, and he has 7 Dajin. So again, I thought that was very interesting that we were introduced to that kind of information. But again, I'm going to give this a 4 out of 5, only because I feel comfortable with that. But again, that ends it for my walkthrough and review of Magi episode 7. Now, definitely comment down below, thumbs up, thumbs down, subscribe above. Let me know what you thought of this episode, and let me know what you think that's going to happen in the next episode coming up. But definitely check me out on Twitter and follow me if you want. But again, that ends it for today, for now anyways. I've got one more walkthrough and review to do, so definitely stay tuned. And before I forget, can't stop the access, but you can watch the feed. I'll see you later, guys.